Hello, screenwriters, and welcome to Writing for Screens, the screenwriting step-by-step project, episode number 117. My name is Glenn Gers, and I come to you every Monday through Friday, if I can make it, at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, to walk you through, let you look over my shoulder and share my screen as I write a 1-hour drama TV pilot script in order to try and teach screenwriting, in order to try and teach the process of screenwriting and get into the nitty-gritty, the details of how you build a script from a rough idea to an outline to a first messy draft, and now we're doing a rewrite of that draft. We're planning that through a new outline. The reason I'm doing this is so that anyone who's watching who wants to learn screenwriting can see this thing that nobody seems to teach, which is the everyday process. They all talk about the business of it. They talk about the result, the good script you're going to come out, but they don't talk about this process by which you get there. And it's not like you just look at a script and say, oh, that's a good one, I'm going to do that, and you just like leap over there. It's a day-to-day process that takes, depending on how much time you can give it, months and months. So let us talk. Hello, I write. Let us talk about that process as we do it. It's really the best way I can show you. It's like a cooking show. I'm going to show you how I chop the vegetables and throw them in the butter and fry them on up. So that's what we're doing here. And today's step is the outline. I am going through all the notes I made when I read the rough draft. It's way too long. It's way too rough. It's just guesswork a lot of the time. But when I read through it, I started to say, oh, this is too long. This is too short. Whatever it is that's wrong with it, whatever it is that's getting good but doesn't get to where it needs to be, I made a note about that. And then I put it into the outline, and that left a lot of questions. And so now I'm going through those questions, trying to answer them so that my outline becomes a things to do list, a map, a take this step, and then you can take that step, and then you'll be done. That is my process. It's not the only process. It's not the best process. It's not the surefire success process. It's just how I figured it out in my 25-year career as a writer of TV and movies. So that's why I am showing you this, because I don't know anyone else is doing it. This is what I wish someone had done for me when I was trying to teach myself. All right, so in the outline, all right, all of these scenes are okay. So I'm going to move them up. We're doing okay with these. Boom. Now, I'm going to leave this as a question because I don't know the answer. The point is, I wanted to say, why can't he call the police? He knows that a drug dealer who is trying to solve serial murders and has gone to get evidence from a woman who has nothing to do with it. She's just the ex-wife of the dead guy who had the evidence. So Norman, our main character, is like, no, you can't let that guy do that. That is one thing that is just not safe. Why doesn't he call the police? You know, the answer is A, he can't call the police on essentially a member of his group, somebody he knows. He doesn't feel comfortable doing that. And second of all, he doesn't really have any evidence of any threat. I mean, so the big question is, how can I show a person sitting alone in a room not being able to do something? How do we know that? And that's actually a really good thing to remember. Hey, Matthew. All right. This is one of the most important questions that you can ask yourself. How do we know that? This is a biggie. All right. Huge. I cannot tell you how important this question comes up. You can have all the great ideas. You can say, oh, this is their backstory and this is their motivation. How do we know that? As we are watching the story, we being the audience, how do we know? Ask yourself that question all the time. And so, yeah, why can't they just call the police? In this case, it's real clearly specific. He is essentially not friends, but acquainted with the guy. You wouldn't necessarily call the police on someone that you know. I mean, hopefully, you would try everything else before you turned a drug dealer, who's somebody you know, over to the cops, because that's going to go bad for him. And so that's the main thing. But the big question is, how do we know? And I'm not sure. The obvious answer is you show him calling the police and saying, like, I have to report that this guy is doing it. He's a drug dealer and he's going to hurt her. And they'll say, did he say he was going to hurt her? Blah, blah, blah. And the problem is that makes our character look stupid. Okay, so I'm just going to leave this. It may be that they talk about it later. The problem with talking about explaining something after it happens, you can't retroactively feel calm. So if something is bothering you in a scene and then 5 scenes later they explain why they did it, you can't unbother people. You can't unbother the audience and make that scene work better. If a scene is looking like it's like somebody's not making sense, the fact that they're going to make sense later, that's cool. But at the time it happens, you need to know what you think is going on. It may not be right, but at least there has to be some reason that you think they're doing it, or that the question isn't coming up. Anyway, this is not a big deal. I just wanted to make a note to myself. More likely threatens Xena with it. Yeah. All right. In fact, we're going to take that and we're going to put it here. Where was that? Okay, good. All right, so now we can move this. All right, so hello, N. Yes, is that a question we have? Are we raising our hand? Or are you saying hello? If it's a question, just chime right in. If you're saying hello, hey, hi. So the next sequence, I had a lot of questions about. I don't know if you remember this sequence, Madeline alone. I had 5 beats, 5 steps. One was her wandering the house by herself. I've turned them into little scene notes myself. Then she has a monologue to George. Then Dundosky interrupts her, and then she talks to the office. And I asked myself, what's the difference? What's the point of these 5 scenes, 5 little scenelets? So I went through and I answered them. I figured out what they all are. So I'm going to put that down. Now, the next thing about and what I realized is the main thing we need to get here is that she does not want to feel, she doesn't want to be there. She doesn't want to get into this. She doesn't want to have their feelings stirred up. And so that's the point of these 5 scenes. And the first thing I want to do is when she's just walking around, it's going to be about her not having feelings, about her just sort of coldly, critically, or curiously dealing with stuff, but not letting herself get all emotional until she has an outburst of feeling when she starts yelling at Dead George. But she's not allowing herself to grieve. She's angry and she wants to go home. That is the point of that monologue. But the other thing is, I realized these 5 steps, I had originally had time jumps. And one of the things that I didn't want to do is have a new time jump to her having this height of emotion. And then we see her later cleaning up the linens or something, and the doorbell rings. And I thought, that's dumb. Why not have the doorbell interrupt the big emotion? So that we, first of all, get these scenes to like tighten themselves emotionally and flow better. And second of all, it means that just when she's like freaking out, the doorbell rings and she has to pull herself back together. Yeah, that's what I actually decided not to do that because it makes him look, well, actually, that's interesting. Yeah, that actually works. I will do that. I will actually have him do that. Good suggestion, Matthew. My feeling was I didn't want to, that still doesn't explain why. But I do think we should show that. It does at least bring up the question that he feels like he can't do it, even if he's not explaining why he can't. All right, cool. Thank you, Matthew. Then, so what I thought about this was, so Dundowski's interrupts, and then when Dundowski is talking to her, and I said I have to rethink that scene entirely. And one of the things I want to do is get her out of it in a way that she's not even thinking about it anymore. And I realized that would be if the scene that's following, a call from her office, interrupts that. So it's like scene, interruption, scene, interruption. It makes things pile up in a really cool way. So those are the notes I made about that. And that gets us all the way to here. So let's just move all of this stuff, boom, here. Okay, a quick check on Hello Ethereum, Sky Films and Media. Okay, fair enough. Clicked on your vid without context. I am appreciative. Thank you. Glad you showed up. Here's what's happening. Working on here. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I am glad to hear that and like the name of your company. What I'm working on right now is this whole project is I am letting you watch and I'm talking to you while I write a drama pilot script because that way I can teach screenwriting with practical, instead of just theoretical, oh, you're always going to run into this problem, which you're not. Every script is different. Every writer is different. There is no way to just say, this is how screenwriting goes. It's not. It doesn't. It's different for everybody, and every script is different. There's huge differences in the problems of every script. So I can't tell you, this is how you're going to solve your problem. All I can show you is, as I go through the process, I think the process that I'm using helps you approach whatever your problems are going to be. That's what I'm doing. So what we're actually doing moment to moment right now is I have, in the past 116 hours, I have written an outline, worked up the characters, figured out the story beats. And then I spent some of that time, 30 or 40 hours, I guess, I don't know how many, writing the rough draft. And I mean, that it's so rough. So many questions didn't get answered in writing the outline. So I would write the rough idea of like, oh, well, like this part of the scene probably has to happen, or, oh, cool, this will happen. Then I went through that, I read it. I did not do that on camera because who wants to watch somebody reading? But I read through the script and I made notes. And what I am doing now is going through those notes in the outline again. You always go back and forth between the outline and the text. It's not like you get the outline perfect and then you just write the text from it. It's a back and forth thing constantly, where you use the outline as a thinking space, a working space, a way to step out of the particular problems of the moment and say, what's this scene for? What's this character's arc through the story? So you do that in the outline, and then after that I will go back and I will rewrite the draft I did, try and sharpen it up. Then you do the whole thing over and over and over. This is one of the most important things that you need to know. You go over it and over it and over it, back and forth, outline, script, outline, script. What's good, what's not good. You really try and figure out how it works by reading it and then rewriting it. So that's what we're doing right now. We are just going through and rewriting it, rewriting the outline. Okay, so Matthew, he picks up the phone to call the police, but while he's on the phone, he sees that it makes him feel guilty. That is too much work. It's also kind of clunky for what I'm trying to do. I think that the fact that he's changing his mind at least tells us he doesn't think he can call the police. He doesn't feel okay about it. We can interpret a couple of different reasons. They'd all be kind of true. The only thing that I think is really important, and which I appreciate that you showed me, was we can show that he wants to call the police but doesn't feel he can. That's cool. That's worth doing. Garbage day. Yes, the trash trucks came. They took the garbage. Also, hello. Yes. Well, here's the thing. It's not. I mean, in this particular case, what's stopping him from calling the police is, internally, if you're wrestling with that question of why isn't he doing it, it has to do with the relationship between the person who's calling and the person who's getting called on. That's the main thing. Or between the person who's calling and the police. Everything is relationships here. This is important. Whenever you don't know what to do, look at the relationships. Who is involved? And what are they trying to do for or not do for each other? So in this case, we got a guy who wants to stop a thing, but he doesn't want to get this other person arrested. That's why he doesn't call the police. Or we might think he's afraid of the person he's calling the police on. That would be legit too. It doesn't really matter. You don't have to explain everything. And you don't have to explain it all at the same time. You can explain it in bits and pieces. That's okay. So I guess one of the big questions is when you say, what's stopping them from calling the police? Well, there are reasons. You have to decide which one you want to make important. And then, it'll come up. You'll find a scene somewhere in there where it can happen. I've now found 2 places. For every story, it will be different, but for every story, there will be a couple of moments when the subject comes up, or it can come up. But also, depending on the world that you're depicting, it just wouldn't necessarily be a thing that people would do. And also it depends on the personality of the person. They just might be a little shy, or a little scared, or a little like, I'm going to take this on myself. Everybody's different. All right. So these scenes are fine. We can just move them up there. What I'm looking for as I do this is these pink things. I do this pink thing as a format, as you can see over here, up above my head there. It's called question because it means it's a thing I have not figured out yet in the outline. And as long as the reason I do it this way is because when I scroll through here, if I see big hunks of pink stuff, that means I'm not ready to write that scene. I have not made the decision. So in this case, and sometimes I'll skip it and I'll come back to it, but sooner or later, I'm going to have to answer that question. And that's why I put it in question form. All right, so in this case, the point is to show her leaving. That's it. That's all we need, is to show her going. So I think she just needs to be, she's talking to the youngest member of the group. And so I'm going to make that a thing that I've decided. Is she coordinating something with them? Are they helping? Doubting? All right. Which brings up, who is this person? This character is a character I have not even named yet. I have not even thought about. So let's think about this. This character in the group, we're going to go back here. So way up here, I left this as a question. Add 2 more members. And one of them is a high school student. What is Zena's relationship? Uh-oh. Happened again. All right. Let me just take a quick look here. Sorry about this. Just want to find out. No, the battery's okay. It's not the battery. So it's the wire. And what does that mean? Oh, hello. How you doing? So when you create a new character, once again, it's all about relationships. What is the action between the two characters? What is it that she needs in this story that we don't have? Supportive? Idolizes? Because we don't, do we have somebody who really thinks she's cool? No, which is not a bad thing. Not helpful. Okay, so I think that if the conspiracy theorist is somebody who is just not helpful, that's going to be the main thing about that character. Okay. Okay, so the conspiracy is annoying, is making things difficult for her. So, but the main thing is, when you create a character, what you need to try and do is think, well, what are they being used for in the story? Everybody's playing a part in the story, even if it's just like to take you off on a tangent and deal with some other thing. Every character has some purpose. This is, by the way, very unrealistic. It is very unlifelike. that everyone has a distinct and different use and purpose. The truth is, in life, many people we know, they're redundant or they're just kind of taking up space. Not in a story. Um, what would Xena need from someone else? That's a good question. What does she need? Characters are not just tools for storytelling, but they are, in fact, they are part of storytelling. They're not just tools; they're people. You gotta have some feeling about that part of it too. Um, and so one of the things I try and do when I look at my list of characters is to say, what emotion, what shade, what feel, what tone is missing? What can they bring, and how can that react with the others? That's something that I'm often thinking of when I'm trying to come up with something, because you don't want people to do the same, two people to do the same thing, unless that they are a team. Unless it's like, oh, that's her two friends who both agree on blah blah blah. Even then, you're going to want to make them somewhat different. But my question here is, so far, I have a big pile. The question from I Write is, where did I get the idea to do this type of story? And the answer is, I get ideas for stories kind of every day. I mean, all the time. So what I do is I try to keep them in a place where I can get to them. Hold on. And that's why I do this. I make what I call scrap piles. And if you watch this video, brainstorming and scrap piles, I will tell you a little bit about it. But the idea is, whenever I think of a character or a story or a bit of dialogue or anything, I write it down as soon as I possibly can, and I just save it, and then I put it in my scrap pile, my things to do pile. And so I have a whole pile of story ideas, a whole pile of hunks of description, or anything I can think of. I don't want to forget it. And one day when I'm looking for a story, I'll look through it and I'll say, oh, here's 30 story ideas that I've put, each one his own document in a folder. So that's what I had when I started thinking about doing this live stream, and I needed to show you guys a project. I didn't want to write something. I wanted to write something that I knew how to write. I've written in this vibe before. I have written in the genre of romantic comedy thriller, so I knew how to do it. I also didn't want it to be anything that was going to be really hard to do. So I didn't. I went through the ideas I had, and I didn't want it to be controversial. I didn't want this to be anything where it was going to offend or upset or distract from the pure point of this is just to show you how the process works. This is not the greatest idea I've ever had. It's just a cool idea that I knew how to do. And I knew if I was going to be trying to write with a camera on me and talking as I wrote, it had better be something that was relatively easy for me. And that's how I chose it. Yes, my answer to that is almost, well, I don't know. Brothers maybe, but the main thing is, how do you feel about extras having names? Depends on how extra they are. For instance, and this is something you guys should know. An extra does not have a distinctive action. Like this is like contractual. This is actually in the business. If you are a person who is, they're not called extras anymore, by the way. They are called background actors, I believe. There's several names, but the point is, they are. There's a specific job, and it is very, very clearly limited in that you are not allowed to give them a specific, distinctive action to do. They're just part of the scenery, and then they are called background players. If you are doing those, don't name them. If they are doing something like having a fight, then those are actually people who are being given parts, and I would, if possible, give them names. Two reasons. One, unless it's going to be like Fighting Man 1 and Fighting Man 2 because no one interacts with them and they're just two guys having a fight, call them that. Call them Fighting Man 1, Fighting Man 2. That's fine. If you are going to interact with them in any way, it's probably easier to give them names, also because the actors who are playing them will be really appreciative, because when they put that on their resume, when they put it on IMDb, when they put it on their list of credits, being Fighting Man 1 is crappy, and being Hugo, even if the Hugo doesn't even have a line, is still a great thing for them. So if possible, if you're giving somebody even one line, try and give them a name. Don't get crazy about it. But I personally think it's a good idea. It's also, when you're reading, it's hard to read man with suitcase. It's just hard. Unless that's really all they do. If there's a person with a suitcase and all they do is set down the suitcase and walk away, just call them man with suitcase, because that's really all they are. But if you're going to engage with them in some way, give them a name. Yes, that is true. The problem is if you give somebody a name and then they just have a little bit and then they go away, it's probably better not to name them, because you are misleading the reader into thinking that person is going to be important. So it's a tricky thing. All I would say is, if you have any exchange of dialogue, give them a name. And if they are going to just be a person who's just, dropping off a letter or something, mailman, and he says, hey, I noticed your window's broken. Sure, just call him mailman. It's fine. Weigh it for yourself, but the answer is, too much of the man with the red hair who, is dropping catalogs at the front desk, it's hard to read. So in theory, try to either make them a distinctive character who's doing a thing and you give them a name, or just get them out of there quick and describe them just as their type. Yes. Yes, scrap piles. I cannot tell you how vital scrap piles are. Yeah, exactly. You never know how you're going to use them. But even just a scrap pile of names. I have a whole document which is just a list of names. Whenever I hear a name that I think, oh, that's a cool name, just jot it down, keep it. You never know when you're going to want it. So once again, this is a question. You know what I need to do here in order to really understand this? I'm going to go to my notes. Here we go. I haven't used these notes in a while. Notes is just a place where I do thinking on paper. I urge you to always think on paper. Don't just think in your head. When you just think in your head, you don't hold it. You don't use there's something about putting it into words that helps make it more practical. So, what's going on here? Why is that so big? Oh, I think I know why it's so big. There we go. Okay. So here, the group. Zena, Dundosky, McLean, Shrimpton. Okay, I think those are the now. High school conspiracist. Okay, so scary bringer, scary seeker of justice. Influencer and cheerleader. That's what she appears to be. She's actually a murderer. McLean, super smart detective. McLean is unexpectedly a really smart solver of problems. Shrimpton is the voice of everyday amateur. She is the person who's like, it's not that important. We don't want to go actually running into serial killers. So the high school student, uncomfortable nut job. The point about the conspiracist is that he's somebody who makes everybody uncomfortable about what they're doing because he's not helpful. He's a nut job. But the high school student envies Xena, aspires to be Xena. I don't know. What do they actually do? This is a good question. What do they do? Yes, if you use the yellow pages, though, just don't use the first and last name. don't actually take a real person's name. You can take a first name or a last name, but don't take both. Mix and match. Never use a name. Okay. There we go. Con, thank you for being so polite. Yes, I don't know how. Sometimes things happen on the screen and I'm not sure how it happens. What is her... See, because these people are all on side. This is just a... assisting Xena. I can tell you right now that I'm trying not to get too into this because this person is not that important. So for the moment, I am just going to go back to the outline. Hold on. And I don't think that this person in this scene should be doubting. I don't think they should be, Norman and Shrimpton have already been saying, no, don't do this. This is all bad. So I don't think that it can be somebody who's getting in the way. Yes, very often it will be. One of the things I would suggest is for your major characters, Google search the name that you come up with. And if you find that there's a distinctive one person who has that name, change your name a little. It is a really good idea to Google search your names. If you ever get lucky enough to get produced, the legal department will do this and they will make you change it if it is the same as a distinctive person. Yes, baby names. Baby names is a really good. There's websites for baby names, which they give the group or culture that it's from, and in theory, if there's a meaning. Most of the meanings, I got to tell you, I think that somebody is sitting in an office just making that stuff up. I'm not sure how right they are about those meanings, but it doesn't matter. It's cool. And yes, I use baby name sites all the time. All right. If you had the same few fragments of scenes or dialogue going around in your head for ages, do you take that as a sign that the script needs to be written, even if you don't know the rest? Well, yes, but you don't write the script. Plan the script, outline the script, like figure it out, and then write it. If some part of it is just like haunting you, is it nagging you, is it making you just coming back all the time and giving you some kind of kick? Yes. then open up a document and start to figure out that project. It doesn't mean you start writing. If you have a fragment of dialogue, type it down, put it in your notes, put it in your overview or your outline, and then build around that. Who's saying that? Who's doing that? What is their story? Get yourself into a better place. If you just start writing with a scrap of dialogue, yes, it is possible to write the most genius script ever. It's also possible to get really stuck and feel lost. And so my feeling is, if it's working, cool. But if it's not, stop and make a plan. Enjoy that. Figure it out. Have fun with finding a thing that makes that fragment of scene or dialogue important. Make it a turning point. Make it a revelation. Make it a kickstart of whatever it is. Whatever that fragment is, don't throw it away. But you don't have to start writing a whole script just with one fragment. You should, I believe, give yourself a break and have a plan. Yes, in other words, absolutely do not fall in love with your character names until they clear. It's actually called clearing. It's actually called clearance. That's absolutely right. All right. This actually, this is a little tip. When I do ultra low budget, I try not to give people either first or last names. Like I give them either first or last, but I don't give them both. So because if somebody's first name is Carol, it clears. Boom. There's just too many Carols in the world. Even if the last name is Merzecki, there's got to be more than one. And if you just say, "Hey, Merzecki," cool. That's not going to be a problem. It's only when you have a first and a last name. So if you want to save some money on legal fees, if you're working ultra low budget, just don't give them a first and last name if you can help it. Yeah, that's absolutely true. Yeah, it's often the case. Try and tweak it a little, or at least have it be somebody who's either a public figure, but I don't want to get into legal advice. I am not a lawyer. I do not know. I just know that lawyers would say, don't do it. I would also say at this point, don't worry about it. Don't, if you are lucky enough to have the problem that a legal department is coming in and messing with your script, you're in good shape. Go with it. Enjoy it. There you go. Okay, they are helping. She is coordinating something. And what is she coordinating? All right. Yeah, like I said, I wouldn't get hung up on it. Try not to get hung up on anything. Really, honestly, if you find yourself like spending an hour or something on a character and something, their name, don't. Come back to it later. Don't worry about it. It's unless you're having fun and you're not feeling pressured, cool. But for me, I found those things that I overthink and overwork, like right now, this bit. I don't. All I need to do is get the basic point of this, and then I'm going to have to at some point come back and figure out the details. But it's something. Just doesn't matter yet what. I've made a little bit of progress in that I know the mood is she is coordinating. All right. Okay, so this is good. This scene already is working. And yes, That's right. Keep writing. If you just keep writing, yeah, as famously, you just have something to change. Yes, absolutely. That's really really true. Um, and just okay, this is we're getting towards the end here, so I'm just going to take a minute to say um, this is a fact about the entertainment business, and I don't want to sound cranky about it or saying nobody cares in the business. Everyone cares in the audience, but honestly, like if you find get the exact truthful description of the process by which a certain group of people does a thing and they want it to be different because the director thinks, oh, it would be more colorful if they were doing it with a lot of smoke, or it would be more colorful and cool if they were doing it while they were in a car. That's what's going to happen. It is astonishing how much everyone doesn't care about reality in the movie business. So therefore, if you say this is truthful, this is an accurate representation of this group or this job or this place, they're going to say, yeah, that's nice, but we got a better tax break somewhere else, so we're moving it to another place. We're moving it to another country. We are moving it to another. It won't matter. And the funny thing is, they will make a big deal of stuff if they think it's cool, and then they'll go, oh, we're going to stick to this. And then something comes up and they have to change it. They change it. They do. If you care about accuracy or truth or respecting reality in any sense, don't write a script. Don't write anything that a large corporation is going to put hundreds of people with tens of millions of dollars at stake, with everybody having their own opinion and their own agenda. They're going to be like, will this make me look cool? Will this make my department look good? Will this be easier for my department? Will this be cheaper? That's how they decide. They do not decide by, oh, this is an accurate representation of X, Y, or Z, including things like police work, legal work, medical work, every culture and language in the entire world. They don't care. They will change it. So, if you really, really, really care about that, don't write a script. If you really are having fun putting your best foot forward on that, do it and just and go, and it's fine. Okay. Could you talk a bit about how you approach script revisions? Yes. Yes. Well, that's what I'm doing now. I'm showing you. And very briefly, I'm gonna do this because then we're gonna sign off for today. But here's the what I believe is the only pretty reliable revision process that I can talk about. Everybody's is different, but for me, the most important thing is to know it's write, revise, write, revise. And the best way to do that is if you have an outline, then you can use the outline as, just like I'm doing here, a set of notes of things to do. In other words, I am putting down here the things I need to rewrite, so that your outline is, first of all, a workspace, in that if you don't know how to handle something, you work on it in the outline until you get it to be a list of things to do. And then when you have all your pages of your outline and you think in scenes, and you say, in this scene, I just need to make it work better. That's it. But in this time, like, I will make a little note. Put your notes in outline form, scene by scene. This is what I need to get accomplished. Now, these notes could be 12 pages long if you need it to be. But the point is, use your outline as a things to do list. It's a workspace and a things to do list. That's what's so great about it. You just have one document which tells you, I have a list of 60 scenes, and each of these scenes has a little something to do. And I write a little note to myself about what the main feeling is, what the main thing I need to accomplish is, and then I have little notes, what to do. And I go through that outline and I try and answer all the questions that I have. You can watch this hour after hour for the next few days. I'll be doing that here every day at 3 o'clock if I can, although not Monday, not next Monday. So that's my process. It's not the only process. Do whatever you want. But what I would say is the hardest thing is to be able to come up with a constructive plan from reading your work. So what I do is I try and read my work and write notes. Just take down every note I can. You don't have to worry about every little word. You'll figure that out. You can scribble that on the script, or you can make a note of it. But the main thing is just keep going through your list of things to do and making it clear and clean. And then when I start, as you will see in a couple of weeks, maybe less, I will start doing the rewrite. And I will go starting with scene 1. And I will say, okay, this is what I need to do. And then I will open up the document and I'll just fix that scene. And then I will throw out everything in these notes. And then I will go down to the next scene. And then I will do the next scene. And pretty soon you're done. Small steps. Make it a series of small steps. That is the best advice I have for script revisions. I believe, recently did a Q&A, like a Ask Me Anything. You'll see it has a yellow thumbnail with, it says AMAA. And then I believe the question that I put in like rough typewriter type, it says like, how do you rewrite? Watch that one. I've got a bunch of steps written out. Watch that video. I do not have a thumbnail of it here to put up, but I believe it's called How Do You Rewrite? Look through my recent videos. It's pretty recent. Okay. Yes, exactly. That is exactly it. You don't have to watch every one of these. You don't have to. Just watch from here on. You'll get the idea because you'll see me do it. I am doing the rewrite as we speak. So that said, come back on Tuesday or watch when you can. But you will see, yes, sometimes the best, yes, step away. That's one of the other things that you do a little bit of rewriting, then you do a little bit of outlining, then you do a little bit of rewriting, outline, do it. It's over and over again. You don't get it all in your head at once. Nobody gets it all in their head at once. That's why we have outlines. That's why we do drafts, because this work is done piece by piece in little tiny steps over long periods of time. That is the job. That is the process. Step by step, small pieces over a long period of time. Okay. That's okay. When you said that, I thought, I wonder, is she really just going to take a scrap of dialogue and start writing a script? Which, honestly, like I said, it's not impossible. Maybe you can do it. And if you do it, cool, great. If you just want to write for a while, but to me, that would just cause terrible anxiety. I don't know what to write. How do you know what to write until you've got some idea of the big picture? So yes, Monday, it's going to be sad. Yeah, I got to take my mom to the eye doctor. Sorry. So I will see you all on Tuesday. And in the meantime, have a great weekend, and please go write something.